Hi, thanks for joining me. I get many phone calls, emails where clients are asking me for a job in Canada. At Acramian Associates, we do not assist with finding you the employer. What we assist you with is once you have secured your employer, we assist with the work permit applications. The three main ways to get a work visa is either under something called an LMIA, Labor Market Impact Assessment, an ICT, which stands for Intra-Company Transfer Work Permit, or the C11 work visa. There are different types of work permits, open work permit, there's other different closed work permits under NAFTA, under GATS, but for the purposes of this video, let's focus on these three because there seems to be a vast confusion amongst the three. An LMIA is the easiest way to describe it as employer-based. An employer finds you or you find the employer and the employer offers you a job. Once that job is offered to you, the employer has to demonstrate that you are the individual that they need, that your skill set is not readily available. You do that, or the employer does that, by having ample recruitment efforts. We posted on Job Bank Canada and some other websites to show that we have actively seeked out Canadians, but unfortunately, they've either not applied for the job or whoever did apply wasn't suited for the skill sets that's required for that position. This application, together with corporate documents and forms and government fees and some other things, gets submitted with Service Canada. Service Canada then reviews the efforts the employer has made and then makes a decision that, yes, I'm going to give you a positive LMIA, which essentially means the employer has done what he or she needs to do and is able to take it to the second step by securing a foreign worker. When you submit an LMIA, the applicant at that stage does not need to be defined. You don't need to have the applicant already there to submit the LMIA. You can keep, as the employer, the name of the applicant blank. You can also submit a bulk LMIA, meaning some employers are looking for 5 applicants for the same position. Similarly, you'd have to demonstrate recruitment efforts, that you've done your recruiting efforts for 5 applicants and not 1. You have to demonstrate that you have the financial capability to support these applicants, etc., etc. But you can submit all of those into one application, and then if approved, the officer will give you one positive LMIA listing 5 blank spots. And then you choose which applicant is going to get that spot. And if you've already located the applicant, you can mention the name of the applicant. I always like to name the applicant just for one simple reason, is when we do submit the work permit application, it's just a tad easier to let the officer know that the Service Canada officer did skim through the applicant's documents as well. It just increases the chances for that applicant just a little bit more. It's not mandatory and it's not absolutely crucial, but if you've located the applicant, highly recommended that you mention that in the LMIA approval. So that's in a nutshell LMIAs. If you want more details, there's ample blogs that we write on LMIAs. I've done other videos explaining it a little bit more in detail. Going to the ICT, this application is a work permit for those who are self-employed back home and they have a business or businesses back home. And they intend to open that branch or subsidiary of that branch. Let's say your company is in Australia and you want to open the subsidiary or a branch of that in Canada. You can transfer between the two companies. That's why it's called intra-company transfer. The employees of company A overseas can transfer to company B in Canada. The requirements for this is that the employee, whether it's an owner or whether it's a director or whether it's an employee, can transfer to the other company in Canada so long as they can demonstrate they've been working for the company overseas for a minimum of 1 year. For an owner, it's quite easy. You can demonstrate with ownership documentation. Some owners are also employees of the company. So if you're paying yourself a salary, you can demonstrate with pay stubs. Some owners pay themselves dividends and so forth. So it's relatively straightforward to demonstrate that you've been part of the company full-time basis for 1 year. The second requirement is that the two companies have to have a qualifying relationship. And many times I see applicants doing this incorrectly. A qualifying relationship is demonstrated based on the share registration. How are the shares registered overseas should be proportionate, not equal, to the Canadian one. The easiest example is if you're 100% in the overseas company, then you have to be 100% here. And what demonstrates a qualifying relationship is control. So if you're the owner and you're controlling the overseas company, then you should have control over the Canadian company. So that word control comes in throughout the application. The third one is the most difficult part to demonstrate, and that's your expertise. Why do you need to be transferred to Canada? Why must you come? Why can't you just hire a Canadian to do that job? Why must you transfer yourself all the way from the overseas company to essentially initiate this company or to continue with the company in Canada? And it's subdivided into specialized knowledge, executive position, and managerial. So you have to demonstrate that you perform those duties in those codes, as well as that your expertise are essential to the growth of the company in Canada. So that criteria is, I guess, out of the three, the hardest one to demonstrate to the officer. Again, just like the LMIA, we've done tons of videos on ICT, so feel free to watch those. Now, as far as C11, very similar to the ICT, except take away the overseas company. And it's a brand new company in Canada or a joint venture with an existing company. Some people come and buy, a franchise of Popeyes. Some people want to join with friends and family as shares. Some people have companies overseas with other individuals, but they don't want to have that same ratio of shares with the Canadian company, but they have experience. So the C11 is a self-employed work permit. You do need a business plan. You do need to demonstrate that you have expertise being a business operator, but you don't need to have a qualifying relationship between the two companies. So I hope there's a distinction now between LMIA, ICT, and C11. If you have questions, please give us a call. Thank you, and until next time.